Okay, polynomials. What in the heck is a polynomial? Well, this is a really mathy description of what a polynomial is. One thing I want you to kind of get from this is that they have a whole bunch of little terms that are separated by pluses. And it's one of the problems with things like this. They don't have to be pluses. They could be minuses. But there's a whole bunch of terms. So for example, this is a polynomial. It doesn't have to have each kind. This has a to the third, this has a to the second, but it doesn't have an x to the first. And at the end, it doesn't have to have an x at all. Okay, this is called a polynomial. Now the numbers that I didn't write, that's a 1, that's a 1. Those are still called something. It starts with a C. Does anybody remember the name for the number in front of the letter? Yes, coefficient is correct. Coefficient. All right, now you don't have to memorize that, but they're going to ask you later, what's the coefficient? And it's that number in front. All right. Next, obviously this is the biggest one. And I like to think of this as, like for instance, at the Air Force Academy where my son went, at the end, they have you graduate, and usually there's a general there who is speaking to you at graduation. And the 4-star general is the one who's got literally 4 stars on them. Okay, and that's like one of the highest. There is such a thing as a 5-star, but so this is like the biggest rank. Okay, it's like a 3-star general. You always put them in order, and the one on the left is the one that is the highest rank. All right, so x to the thirds are first, and that's the highest rank one. Do you get if there's any big decisions to be made that they get the final say? Because they're the boss. Well, the same thing happens with the polynomial. If I'm deciding whether this polynomial is going to go up or up on the right or down on the left or that kind of thing, it's all about this one. That's the boss. It's like the President of the United States. He has a general that thinks we should do this. The president can go, nope. He's the commander-in-chief. He gets to decide. So the President of the United States is the one who makes the final say on things. It's a little scary sometimes because they're not necessarily always in the know as much as the generals, but there's got to be a boss. This number at the end only does one thing. It's the y-intercept. So would you please do a couple labels now? Write this one down. I'd like you to write coefficient there. Not the last one. That's called a constant. If you write it down, it activates a different part of your brain, which is better at remembering things. This thing, like I said, it was like a 4-star general. That is called the degree. And the biggest one is just the winner. You don't add them all up or anything. You know, like there's multiple powers there. Just the biggest one is the degree. So I could say on a test, make me a 3rd degree polynomial with a constant of 5, and you'd have to write something like this. It wouldn't even have to have that middle term. You can have almost anything in the middle. It's like it doesn't matter. The very beginning of the polynomial matters, and the end of the polynomial matters. Okay, because this is the y-intercept. It's the constant, and it's also the y-intercept. Because if you remember this really important saying, the y-intercept is where x is 0, that would zero out the whole rest of the equation. Like the front of it would all be gone because the zeros would just disappear. You'd be left with y equals 5. So the y equals 5 is the y-intercept? Dang it, I just did that wrong. No, that's right. It is the y-intercept. Oh, for a second I thought it was the x-intercept. My bad. So you've got to be able to say these things. The x-intercept is where y equals 0. And of course, the y-intercept is the reverse of that. The x-intercept is where y is 0, and the y-intercept is where x is 0. All right. So if I give you a polynomial, you got to be able to tell me a few things. Like here's one. 4x to the 5th plus 3x squared minus x minus 5. What degree polynomial is this? Say it if you know it. Just like out loud. What degree is this? 5. Yeah, it's degree 5. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4 terms, like those little things that are separated with the pluses and minuses, those are called terms. It's got 4 terms. If I said that this number, I even get confused on this. That number is where x equals 0. Do you get all these would cancel out? If x equals 0, I'm finding the y-intercept is that number. And that number at the end is also, starts with a c. It's not coefficient. Constant. Good. So that's the constant. What was the lead coefficient? There's multiple coefficients. There's actually 3 coefficients. I'll put a 1 here and you'll be able to see the third one. That one, and that one are the coefficients. What's the lead coefficient? That one. All right, so you got to know these terms. Because if I say this polynomial, like you have to write one on the test. This polynomial is degree 5. You could be like, oh, so you mean that the biggest power is a 5. Its lead coefficient is a 4. Okay, that's this part right here. And this whole term is the lead term. I said these kind of don't matter, and it's true. And then this tells us our other important thing. It's the constant, and it's the y-intercept. All right, next thing I want to remind you about is you knew this from higher algebra, but you totally have forgotten it, I would bet. Do you remember this deal where if this is degree 5, that's odd, so the ends go opposite direction? My function might do something like that in the middle, but do you remember that deal where if this is odd, these are going up and down? That was a thing. You learned that in higher algebra a long time ago. So if they're going opposite directions, that means that that critical, most important one, the lead term, has a degree of 5. Any odd number, they're going opposite directions. This is like a fire hose of information, but it's all used. It's all old information. You have it stored somewhere in your brain. All right, so if I give you another one, y equals 6x to the 4th minus 2x to the 3rd minus 8. You should be able to tell me like a whole bunch of things. What's the degree? What's the lead term? What's the lead coefficient? I'm just going to call it COE for coefficient. And what's the y-intercept? Oh, and how many terms does it have? All right, so let's get some participation. Dice of Destiny will make me call on certain kids. Here we go. Row 1, person 4. You're the closest to 4, Trent. So, what's the degree of this puppy?
4.
Degree 4, very good. Next up is row 1, 1. Arrow, that's you. Lead term?
6x to the 4th.
Yep, very good. Lead coefficient. Row 6, you're the only one in row 6.
6.
Lead coefficient is 6, yes sir. The y-intercept. That's row 3, person 1. Garrett, that's you. What's the y-intercept?
Negative 8.
Yes, except the y-intercept is where x is 0. So go 0 comma negative 8. That's how you should write your y-intercept. Get used to being a little nervous if the answer is just a number. Because with y-intercepts or x-intercepts, you just tell me a number, it's not going to be good enough. I know, degree is just a number. Lead coefficient is just a number. But on the y-intercept, you have to say whether it's 0 comma this or that comma 0. And the y-intercept has an x of 0. Okay, terms. How many terms? This one's Alex K. It has 3 terms. 1, 2, 3. All right, next part. If this right here is positive in front, they told you something about that in higher algebra. Do you remember something about the graph? I know something about the graph because of that. If this number's positive here, and it's been too long and you haven't used it. That's what happens with things like this. The day they taught this to you, you were totally solid on this, but since then you haven't used it, right? And that's what happens with things. And so this is when I refresh your memory. We won't have to spend a whole day talking about it like you did last time. If it's positive in the front, then it's going up on the right. Okay, so positive number in the front means up. If this was negative right here, if there was a negative, that would mean it's going down on the right. So again, it's about the right side, not the left side. Left side could be doing something completely different. All this tells you is positive on the right. That's going up on the right. So that lead number tells you the right side. So what tells you the left side? The left side is this deal. I already mentioned it once. If that's even, if it's even, then they're the same. Do you get that these are not going the same direction on the ends? Then that one's odd. Could this possibly be the graph that I need? No, because this one's even. And that means they have to be going the same direction as each other. So this one has to be going up on the right and up on the left. It could be doing all kinds of crazy stuff in between. But I know it's up on the right because of the front number being positive. And I also know it's up on the left because that's even. All right, we need to do a couple for practice. Everybody write this out. Y equals 6, x squared minus 3x minus 1. And we're going to go on the right side, it's doing this. On the left side, it's doing that. We always start with the right side. I know that this one's going up on the right. Why do I know that? Mr. T.
Positive 6.
Yep, because that's positive. This has to be going up on the right. Garrett, on the left, I look at something else to see if it's up. Actually, really, I don't see if it's up or down. I see if it's the same as this or not. So, how do you do it?
Well, it's even.
Because that's even,
So it's the same.
so it's the same. This number tells you whether it's the same or different. All right? If it's even, you'll have the same. It'll be either the same, if this says up, it'll be up. If it's odd, then you will be different. Would you agree that we kind of use those words interchangeably? If I said in Minnesota, there's a squirrel that is like literally dancing in my front yard. You might say that's odd. Or I could have also said that's different. That's different. All right, so different and odd kind of go together. So if you get an odd one, they will be like up and down. All right, so let's do one that's odd. Y equals negative 4x to the 5th. Again, these next couple things don't matter. But the last thing does. That just tells you the y-intercept, because if x is 0, these would drop out. Okay, so I know that this thing would have a y-intercept of 1, and it would be going down on the right. How did I know it was down on the right, Anna? Yes, the lead term is negative, so it's down on the right. And is it up or down on the left? Brady. Up on the left because what? You're right. The odd ones mean up.
It's just the opposite.
It means the opposite of this. Very good. I'm just trying to make sure that some people think that. Some people think that odd means up or something like that. Odd just means that it's different. This is telling you it'll be different on each end. So whatever it was, down in this case, now it means it has to be up. And the only other thing I know is it has a y-intercept of 1, so I have to go through that. Now, in the middle, it could have been doing something like this. It doesn't really matter in the middle. All I'm teaching you is the ends and the y-intercept. All right, one more like that. Y equals negative 5x to the 5th minus 2x squared minus 1. Would you please sketch that? I know what the y-intercept is. That means somewhere along here, I know where that has to be. And I know whether it ends on the right going up or down, and I know what it's doing on the left. So it's either going up or down here, up or down there. I'm not saying those are correct. Okay, Sean, I'm going to start with you. Tell me what that negative in the very front tells you.
That's gonna go down.
Where? On the right or left? Nope, this one's on the right. And I get that kind of would make sense because it's on the left side of the equation, but no, it's the right side going down. Okay, so it's going down on the right. Next one is row 5, person 2, Rissy. What does, how about this? What is the y-intercept? Because that's like right in the middle. So it has to be going through that. Cool. And then last, row 2, last person, she's not here. Son, you're the closest. On the left, this tells us. Correct. Now what does all of that? There, that does. Right now I'm only caring about, did you know it was going down on the right because of that? Up on the left because that's odd. And it went through -1, which is right there because of the y-intercept. All right, so there's a good review and really important stuff, and it took us like 20 minutes, but that's higher algebra that you're supposed to know coming into this. Okay. So now, is this even a polynomial? All right, so here's what to look for when things aren't a polynomial. This one is a polynomial. It's fine. But I'll tell you, this one's not. Can anybody tell me what makes you suspicious that it, because it's different? Negative power, yep. If you cannot have negative powers. If you have negative powers, that means this is actually like 1 over 6x to the 4th. Actually, the 6 would be on top. It's really kind of weird. So anyway, a negative power, those cannot be polynomials. All right, next thing. What's your gut? Think this is a polynomial or not? That is not a polynomial because of what's different? That. It's called the square root. You can't have square roots. Now, here's another side note a lot of people don't know. You all know that would be the square root of 16. But would you know that this also means square root of 16? Some of you remember that. That's awesome. That could not be in your polynomial. Can't have square roots like this or like this. Either one, not a polynomial. Not a poly. Okay, so if you ever find one that's got square roots in it, not a polynomial. This one is a polynomial. It's just they wrote it wrong. Do you remember that the most powerful is supposed to be on the left? The x power of 4 should be on the left, and then the 15 should be on the right. Notice I had to move the negative with the 2 because that negative is on the 2. It's not on the 15x. All right? So this was a polynomial. It was just written funny. Now I can see this is the lead term. It's the boss. It's got the biggest power. Its degree is 4. So I know it's going down on the right. Also down on the left because that's even. And you might be like, there's no number here. Well, then that means it goes through 0. So it could have looked something like that. Goes through 0, 0. Because there's a 0 there. Okay. So next I got to remind you of some forms of numbers. Like this one is slope-intercept. Y equals 3x plus 4. Because it's got the slope right here and the y-intercept right there. Does that ring a bell? Should know slope-intercept. Okay, that's even on the first 20. So if you don't recognize that one, you don't have your first 20 down well enough. That's a slope, that's a y-intercept. Okay, next, point slope form is this one. And that early on in the year, it's important to remind you that that actually comes up more from now on. You'll see this more than you'll see this. You're used to seeing these all the time in algebra. Now that we're kind of more grown up, you use this a ton. And it's called point slope. Instead of slope intercept, it's called... Okay, that phone needs to go in the backpack. All right. Actually, you must have been touching it, so yeah, we'll talk later about phone jail, but I want to keep moving. So this is the point. This is the slope. That's called point slope. You need to know that one. It's going to come up a ton. So if I give you an equation like this on your next test, you'd have to go, oh, so you're saying that the slope is 4. And that is the point, except be careful. It's like you would bring, the equation should be like this, y plus whatever that number is, and x plus whatever that number is. So you bring those symbols with, no, wait a minute. No, it's not. It should be minus. Sorry. The equation should have a minus in there. And so that means, I even wasn't sure for a second. That means the point. The only question is it 5 comma 7 or negative 5, negative 7? And it is 5 comma 7. It's like there's supposed to be negatives in the equation. So if there's a 5 there, that means the point has a regular 5 here. If there's a 7 here and there's a minus, you use regular 7. It's like this negative is supposed to be in the equation. See, look, minuses. All right, so there's a point slope. And last but not least, the standard form. Now this was like a feast of algebra. You're supposed to know all of these things, but I know it's been forever since you've done them. This is the one where you've got A, B, and C, but no, wait, no you don't. It isn't solved for y. If it was solved for y, you'd be able to do like A, B, and C. This isn't that. This isn't for that. This is called standard form. It's sometimes used for making matrices, but you haven't done matrices yet. So standard form is like one of those ones that's hard to describe why you'd ever want it. It's fairly easy to find the x-intercepts and the y-intercepts. X-intercept is where y equals 0. Just put a 0 there, and then you could solve for x. The y-intercept is where x is 0, so you could put a 0 here, and then solve for the y. And it's good for finding x or y-intercepts. That's one good thing it's good for. Okay, moving on. This is a typical test question, so pay attention. Try it with me. That just gave me 2 points. Did you know that was the point negative 1 comma 2? And did you know this is the point 3 comma negative 2? See, in higher algebra, they would have just given you the points like I did in blue there. You're in pre-calc. You got to recognize that that is telling you that's where the x is, that's where the y is. You're supposed to know it means it looks like this. Now that I got those two, I can make the slope really easy. The slope, in case you forgot, slope my slope is negative 1. I know it's been a while. Do you remember how to find slope? Good. Thank you. All right. Slope in your wheelhouse? Please tell me you know remember how to slope. Okay, so here's 2 points. F of 1 gives me 3. Didn't I just give you a point? Yes, I did. And f of 4 gives me 5. Didn't I just give you another point? These 2 points. First of all, I'd write them as points. then can you tell me the slope of it? So much algebra to remember. Remember when people started this class and I said, you've got to know that first 20? And if you're terrible at it, it's fine as long as you fix it. This is one of the things that's just got to be automatic for you. And if it is, I'm sorry that you have to wait because there's still a few kids that don't have this down. This is the point 1 comma 3, and this is the point 4 comma 5. Now I'm going to get my slope, which is 5 minus 3. That's what I did there. Over 4 minus 1. 5 minus 3 is 2. 4 minus 1 is 3. The slope is 2/3. Raise your hand if you had 2/3 before I said it. Cool. Then what's the equation for this thing? Well, which one do you want, Mr. Server? Do you want this one, which you're going to use more than the other? Or do you want this one? We can do it either way. And in this class, you have to be able to handle it either way. So I know the slope is 2/3. Do you get that means? That it goes here, right where the is, and here, right where the is. And if you were going to tell me the y-intercept, I'd want to use this way. If you were going to tell me, oh, by the way, the y-intercept is 6, I could be done. I could just say it's y equals 2/3 x plus 6. If you tell me the y-intercept, I'd use that way. If you're just going to tell me some random point, I'd use this way. Because I'd put the point here. And do you get in this case? I told you 2 points. I'm going to grab one of my 2 points. Weirdly, you can use either one and it will come out the same. Y minus, I'm going to use this one. The y of it is 3. 2/3 for the slope. X minus the x of it is 1. That is another critical algebra skill. And I'm starting to realize that I've only made you learn the first 20, and what you really should know by now in this class is called the top 20, which are these exact things. These are 2 of them. 2 of your top 20 are these. Like, I wish I would have practiced this before now, but we were still struggling with a lot of kids getting through the first 20. But now you got to be able to do that on your next test. So I think it's time to move y'all up from the first 20 into the top 20, which are these algebra skills that we are talking about today. But because we haven't done the 20s, it's going to be a little harder to remember all of these things. All right, so if I give you 2 points, 2 comma 6, and f of 3 equals 9, I just gave you 2 points. Would you please tell me an equation for this one using this point and the slope that you can get? Find me an equation for the line that goes through these 2 points. You're going to use 2, 6 in your final equation. If you forgot what's going on, just find me the slope. All right, 9 minus 6, I did the y minus the y, over 3 minus 2. 3 over 1, which is 3. That's the slope. Slope is 3, who had 3? Cool. Then, everybody do this one. Y minus, can you finish that equation? If you're like, I can't memorize another equation. Side note, it's the same as this. I'll show you. This y, or m, the slope, is y minus the y over x minus the x, right? If I just multiply both sides by x minus x, That cancels that, and look, it's the y minus the y over m times the x minus the x. It's the same as the slope equation, except rearranged. And it's these that are your point. So Trent, what is the point that I said we should use? 2,6 or 3,9?
2, 6.
Yep, we're supposed to use that point. So if I want to put in the 2,6, careful, a lot of people just go 2,6. Nope. The 2 was the x, so it goes above the x. And the 6 goes here. Y minus 6 equals m. Do I know the m? Yeah, it's 3. X minus 2. Whew, that's a lot. All right, so, but wait, there's even more. Holy crap, this is a big, scary unit. Go to page 6 of this. I already practiced this with you, so you should be able to handle it. Do you get there's a negative in the front of this parabola? Therefore, if you're looking for which of these, A, B, C, D, or E it is, it's one of these. If it's got a negative in the front right there, do you get it has to be an upside down one? Because if there's a negative in the front, it's an upside down, it's down on the right. See, if there's a negative in front, it must be down on the right. That one's not down on the right, so it's out. This one is down on the right, so it could be this one. This one's not down on the right, so it's out. This one's not down on the right. This one is down on the right. It's either B or E. So which one is it? Do you remember that this is 4, 2 for its vertex? This is called vertex form of an equation. Do you remember that deal where there's a 4 here and a 2 there, so you use 4, 2 as the vertex? Now can you tell which of it has to be? If the vertex is at 4, 2, it can't possibly be over here. That would be where it would be at -4. So this one's out, and it has to be that one. Okay, this one is positive in front, so it must be going up on the right. So which of these go up on the right? Oh yeah, all the ones that I crossed off last time. So for this one here, I'm going to highlight that one there. It has to be the ones going up on the right. So it's because either this one or this one or this one. But then it goes through the point 3, 2. See? Right here. 3, 2. So, of the ones I highlighted in blue, which one could possibly have a vertex at 3, 2? Only that one. This one's negative, has a negative in it. This one has a negative in it for the point, for the vertex. So it couldn't be this one, couldn't be that one. So this must be problem number 2, must be A as an apple. This one was B as in boy. All right. Enough about that. Oh, hallelujah, I made it through to the end. And, you know, I told you about the calculator. We're actually going to need that next time. And I'm happy that I don't want to try to go on right now. I've just given you so much information. It would be probably not worth it to try to teach you the last thing, which is that thing with the calculator. But we'll do that tomorrow. All right, so everybody find the worksheet and open it up, and I'll tell you which problems you need to do. We'll start it in class. You'll have a good 10 minutes at least. Trent, you're going to be reading me number 1. Let's get there quickly, please. Arrow, I'd love to look at yours to see which problems to skip, so be ready to show me in just a second. But Trent, you got number 1? Read it to me.
3x to the power of -5.
3x to the -5, keep going. Plus what?
17.
Okay, cool. What do they want? Probably a whole bunch of little things like degree and whatever.
Yeah, state the degree of leading coefficient.
Okay. But read me all the directions, because I already have warning signs going off in my head. Do you remember the deal where that's not even a polynomial because it has a negative power? Those aren't allowed. So does it ask you, like, is it a polynomial?
Yeah, it says like find determine which are polynomial functions. For those that are,
Aha.
for those that are not, explain why not.
Okay, so all you have to do is explain not poly. I'll be fine with poly being short for polynomial. It'll save you some time. It's not a poly. No neg powers. That's the rule it's breaking. Can't have negative powers. So this thing's not a polynomial. That's all you have to say. It's not a poly. Because it just can't have negative powers. All right. Who's going to read me number 2? It's row 1, person 2. That's you, Sophia. Would you read me number 2?
Yeah. Number 2, 2x to the power of 5 minus 1/2 x plus 5. And it's asking, is it a polynomial and the degree and the leading coefficient?
All right, it is a polynomial. Don't let that 1/2 freak you out. It's not a power. You just look at the powers. And there's no square roots, and there's no negative powers. I put in a power of 1 here just to be extra clear. That's a polynomial. So what do they want to know then?
The leading coefficient and the degree.
Lead coefficient. Okay, what is that? Lead sounds like this one. Is it the whole thing, or is it just the 2? What do you think? Just the 2. And then the last thing?
Degree.
Degree. What do you think? You are correct. Awesome. All right, I'm going to pause for a second while I go look and see if there's problems I can have you skip. Okay, for today, we're just going to skip number 7. And so this is fairly easy. But man, there's a lot of things that we reviewed today, and you need to know every single one of them on your test. You're going to have to know all that stuff I just talked about. And of course, it's day 1 of the new unit. I totally get you're not, if I tested you tomorrow on everything I just taught you, you wouldn't pass. But you at least have to start processing all of those old things. And tomorrow I will teach you that part about using the graphing calculator to do linear regression. For those of you that didn't have your calculator with you today, if you can bring it with you, it is easier. The physical buttons and just not having to like scroll back and forth on different apps on your iPad, I would bring your physical calculator with you. That's all I got for you for today.